Oh,
Hey, welcome everybody.
God.
What? Beautiful sunshine, eh? Beautiful sunshine. We're live, Dave. Welcome to Talking Nav, everybody. Just watching this moment of actually enjoying, seeing Dave.
We're having a few connection problems.
Are you? Oh, that's why you're kind of starting. So welcome.
Yeah, it wasn't just one of my fancy dance moves.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah. So was it one of his fancy dance moves? Okay. So in the last 24 hours,
all right,
everything changed in the last 24 hours, didn't it? Now it's Laurie versus Jim for the mayoral race of Niagara Falls.
Right? All right. Well, yeah. Well, what first thing I like to talk about though is I was given a rebuke. I pointed out on Paul Thomas of Paul's show and here that the gambling casinos and that rely upon about 5% of the patrons that are the problem gamblers to get a huge amount of return from them. I was rebuked and saying, well, you're a gambler. You do bingo. You do bingo, and that's gambling. And yes, it is gambling, but it's fundraising gambling, and it has restraints on it. So you cannot, it's nearly, well, it would be pretty hard. I'm sure you could do it, but very hard to get in trouble playing charity bingo. This is the type of gambling where you really do rely upon that moderate person that goes into the casino, the comparative person that goes into the casino with $20, and once that's gone, they leave. Well, almost every bingo player comes and plays for fun, and they cannot overspend because how many cards can you watch per game?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually, I've seen some people in places like Delta Bingo playing what seems to be about 30 or 40 cards.
Yeah, they're very good at it. Yeah. But the returns are pretty good too for the average gambler. The last bingos we were doing, I think it was $4,000 per show on average. There are other times where there's bonus bingos and so on.
Yeah.
And that is always the same. It never increases, and you cannot win more, and you cannot risk a whole lot. It's a whole lot different than a casino that's making money. It's a business to make money from you. It's a business that,
so if I'm buying one bingo ticket, how much is that on your your
it's $4 bingo? And it's got 3 games on it.
Yeah. Okay. $4.
It's got 3 games on it. So every card you buy is $4, and there's 3 games on that card.
Yeah.
Right? So I've got a chance of winning. You have to.
Yeah. I got a chance of winning Actually, I've got a chance in winning on all 3 games potentially. Right?
Yes, rare, exactly. Right.
Rare, but it could happen, right?
Yeah. So when you're playing bingo, how many cards can you have in front of you? So let's say you're a really good bingo player. You might have 4 or 5 cards in front of you. If you've got 4 cards in front of you, you've got 12 games that you have to take care of. And if you say you bought 4 cards, that's $16. And you get to play that card for the whole hour. So you got $16 for 4 cards. You're not going to go crazy on that. It's not like going to the one-armed bandits where you can keep putting more and more money into it, where there's no control over it. So it's self-controlled. It's a fundraising. Gambling is a lot different from money-making gambling. Both are designed to make money but one is a profit-driven one that will exploit you at every turn if they can. The other is not interested in exploiting you; just want you to play this game, And
Come on, places like Delta Bingo, they make a profit.
I'm not so sure how but they also you cannot go incredibly nuts there either.
No, I know you can't.
It would be hard to be if you're a gambleaholic. Yeah, you can get some satisfaction of playing a game, but you cannot push your limit there.
Yeah.
For the same reason I told you, there's only so many cards you can keep an eye on per game.
Yeah, exactly. I probably couldn't keep an eye on more than 4.
I would doubt if I could do 4.
Yeah,
well, I mean, 4 individual games. Yeah, I could probably do that. But in our case, where you get 4 cards, you have 3 games on each.
Yeah.
So that would be like I know people that buy, I think 3 or 4, depending on how quick they are with the things. And remember, every card is used in every game too. So
yeah.
You know,
exactly. Yeah.
So it would be even if you were the worst of all gambleaholics and you're playing Qantas TV Bingo, it would be really, really hard to lose more money than you know. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Then I mean, you might lose $20. You know?
Yeah, no, that's about the most, because it's about how many you can play on any given day.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, what a lot of people would say is it's good value gambling, right? Because if you're a regular bingo player, a bingo person, and you're playing at places like Delta Bingo, and you do it on a regular basis, from what I understand, it's almost you almost walk. You go there 5 days in a row. Within that period, you'll have won something.
Well, with us, our odds are pretty good.
Yeah.
For Qantas TV Bingo, it's not bad really.
Yeah. But you get regulars who win time and again, right?
Yeah. There's a couple of ladies. One has since passed away that I know. They were lucky. Then you get on the phones and you talk to somebody who's played every Sunday for 12 years, never won, but this is the first time they won. Others, you hear from them the next week. One time when I was working on phones, the lady won a game, and then I'm on the phones again. I says, "Hey, didn't I just talk to you?" He says, "Yeah, I won again on the same night." And then I talked to a person that would won it the week before or 2 weeks before. Wow, there are some people there that are just plain lucky.
Yeah,
but it is a wholly different thing. You know, it's
okay.
Yep.
All right, let's get on to our main news of today. So locally, Laurie has switched her thing from running for another council seat for a 3rd term to running for mayor for the 1st term. So, I've spoken with Paul's known about this for about 3 or 4 days. I've been guessing at this for about 3 or 4 days, to be honest. Laurie's campaign went quiet for a little while, and I'm thinking, okay, is she switching?
I didn't have any clue at all. Wilkins News tipped me off about that. I was glad to hear it, but I was also apprehensive. And the apprehensive thing came. I felt that she would be safer waiting another 4 years, really entrenching herself. But then again, I might be completely wrong there. One of the things that Laurie does is make careful decisions based on facts. So that's what she does in council. So when she made this decision, she probably did the same thing. She's very much encouraged, I believe, probably by others to do that, because there's very few times in my experience where a politician has had almost universal trust. And that is something. Whether or not she'll be able to translate that into moving up to mayor, I think she can. I think she's got to get a little bit tougher. I think she's got to throw the gavel at a few people once in a while.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I think the thing is that yes, she's in reach of doing that. Absolutely, she is. He got about 15,000 at the last election. She got 14,000 at the last election. So yes, she's in reach. Right?
Well, let's put it. Yeah, she is within reach. I just don't. I hope that the field does not get diffused too much, uh, where votes that would normally go to her get deflected to other candidates.
Yeah.
Particularly, I suppose, because Jim has been in there for so long, and we see the voting patterns of Niagara Falls are usually very loyal to their incumbents. Wayne Thompson was like that. He got voted a lot. Up until now, Diodati has done very, very well. But go ahead.
And I was going to say, Thompson got the votes even when he was clearly no longer capable and should not have put his name on the ballot.
Yes, so he there was a great deal of loyalty there.
Yeah.
To really a man in his dotage that was trying very hard, but just did not have the ability to do what he should be doing, like the last few years for sure. And everybody was very patient with him at City Hall and during the council meetings where he could hardly express himself. He couldn't do it in a timely manner. He did it well, but he did it over a long period of, and then the time before this, that's the way he was talking, as you remember.
Yeah. But, I remember. Yeah.
So
it was there was clearly before the 22 election, he should not have restood, right? But he was, I'm going to be the first on the poll. I'm going to be the first to put my name up. It's traditional. I'm doing it now. Right. When in fact, I think he should have stood down for his illness sake.
Yes. I would think, though, going forward, whoever loses this race coming up, I think they'll just move towards a different office. Like, for instance, if Jim loses it, he'll probably go into provincial politics. Mm-hmm. If Lori loses it, she might do the same.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many what opportunities are going to be available at the region these days. That's still up in the air. Yeah. But you still have experienced politicians. So where do you put them? Jim, I don't know, but Jim has more wherewithal. He's got more money, and I hope that's not what's going to make the edge. He does have a lot more money, and he has probably a lot bigger voting infrastructure to keep going. But then again, if you want change, you got to change the person at the top, and Lori seems to be. I don't know. I'm really, really in a corner because she does her homework.
The two things to note: one, Gary Baker, by all accounts, Gary Baker, from following his announcement yesterday, is no longer a mayoral candidate. He's switched to normal council, right? Although the website doesn't show that yet.
Yes, I think. Who else has just jumped into the fray?
Caroline Iannone's husband, because he no longer works for the city.
Oh, okay. Tanya Harding, or not Harding?
Tanya put her name up the other day. Yes.
Hayward. Yeah. So she seems to be a positive influence as well. Like you say, when you're looking at these candidates, you don't look whether they're conservative, NDP, or liberal so much as if they're just reasonable people with because any political stripe can walk in here because it's a much more much more common sense kind of thing. You've got a budget, you got X amount of money, and you want to spend it in certain ways. And how do you do that in a mature and common sense way? So your geopolitical or your political machinations won't have much to do with that. You know, it'll be just basically budgeting.
Yeah. So, in addition, though, the outstanding question is Kevin Martineau has already been talking about, has already started his mayoral campaign. Paul Manning, who's a former undercover cop who wrote about his experiences in the book 1078, A Tale of Mafia, Power, and Police Corruption. So there's some interesting candidates out there.
Yeah, I Wilkins News told me he was a pretty good guy. Whether that's going to make him a good politician or not, who knows?
Yeah,
you know.
But he's no longer undercover, right?
Obviously not.
But I wish them all well. All right, I wish them all well. Right, and we will talk about candidates next week once the nominations have closed. All right. And
yeah, that would be a good idea to keep on.
Certainly, half a show on Niagara, half a show on St. Catharines, and half a show on the rest. Right.
Yeah, and for our listeners, keep your ears tuned to Paul Lemire's show.
Yeah,
you know?
Your City, Your Voice. Let me see if I can find the link, and I'll add it to the bottom. Okay, for everybody. I will get the link and I'll add it to the bottom. Okay, so
listen. Yes, and with Paul's show, listen very intently. Anything he has to talk about the city or the region. Anything else about politics, forget it. But regional Niagara, he's got it down, you know.
Yeah. God, so logging in with things with two-step verifications, I don't know.
So basically, yeah. So Paul's put a big study on this. He's focused on city politics like I've never known anyone to prior. The years ago, I remember listening to Jim Brown, Jollycut Jim Brown. He would have a very good perspective on how politics went.
Yeah.
But aside from him, Paul, I've never seen anybody zoom in on local politics. Now, here's a guy that understands that you begin with the stuff that you can deal with close by. You can talk all you want about macro politics all over the world, but that's not going to make a whole lot of difference to you and your neighbor in the long run.
That is the link down there to hit Paul's YouTube channel, right?
Yeah. How come you got Talking Niagara on it?
Because it's by talking.
It's from us. Okay.
From me to everybody, right? Okay, so there's some outstanding questions in relation to the local politics. I don't know where that. Okay, so don't forget Gary Baker stepped out of the race for mayor to council. Yep, I already said that, Gary. That's what I said on there. Yep. I will support Laurie if she closes all the commercial rides and amusement parks. Niagara Falls has become too commercial. You have to go back to the old Niagara Falls.
She wouldn't be able to do that anyway because that would be dictatorial powers, and she would be outvoted anyway. Remember, when you're the mayor, you're pretty much the spokesperson, and you only have the tie-breaking vote. Yeah. So it's the will of council.
Well, there's a lot more to being mayor than that, because you're supposed to be the person who actually does it's about chairing the meeting right as well.
Oh, of course, but I'm saying she could not declare an edict by saying get rid of the rides.
Yeah.
She could. We could a diffused voter pool. Yes, a concern. Yeah, this is Heather Fraser Art who's pointed that out to us. That do you think Lori, if she wins, will respark the ward system discussion?
Yes.
Well, she's the one that was the most willing to carry forward it.
Yeah, she will.
There was a logjam for sure because, of course, there was certain people in the council that wanted the at-large system. For a city our size to have an at-large system, that was very rare, but it suited the interest in the politicians that were in the office at the time.
Yeah.
I believe that we'd be better served. Of course, the debate goes on: are we going to be served better by a ward or at-large system? I don't know. If you go to a ward system, you would need less money to get into politics.
Yeah.
If you're in a large system, that means you're allowed to have much more money and bring much more money. But the limitations of the ward system would mean that you could, with a moderate amount of money, you can get into politics.
Yeah, in a ward system, you possibly need about 1,500 votes to get into office, right? With an at-large system in our city, you need 7,000 to be guaranteed.
Well, like Peter Angelo got in with a paltry amount of votes back when it was the ward system.
Yeah,
and it was way back Willoughby or something.
Yeah.
Very, very limited amount. But anyway, so going forward, I think the most important thing for Lori when she gets into office is that Ferris wheel, of course, and how many. It's not just how big, but how many. That's what I'm thinking here.
Yeah.
We should have them. We should have them popping up like flowers all over the city.
You mean hey, now you're on Dunn Street, don't forget to go on our Ferris wheel.
I think it should be our public transportation that they roll down rails and you just get in and go like that instead of on a bus. So I don't know, this Ferris wheel thing is like I wouldn't say I was like overly consumed with it, but I see them all the time. I can imagine one here in my backyard now.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on. I thought we'd keep this one in close proximity. Polling and public opinion: the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's interesting because when people have strong views, a single polling question rarely captures those views in my view, and that's one of the biggest problems that I've seen about polls. So they come along and they say, hey, we would like to get your opinion on the choices are A, B, C, D. No, I want E. Pretty well always.
We're going to have a number of polls coming up on our own municipal election coming up. But one of the most common things we've discovered is that the polls, there's always been complaints about polls, but polls are, although people rely on them, seem to be less and less reliable. We find that a situation, let's say the most recent one where Abdel El-Sayed won his particular election, but he was supposed to do it with double digits according to the polls, and he barely eked out the victory in the end. The polls showed Donald Trump was going to lose against Hillary Clinton. He won, you know. So, and the pollsters are freaking out. And so, what is it? The polls don't seem to be nearly as accurate as they were maybe 20 years ago. Is it the way in which they collect the data? Is it the way they interpret the data? And yet it seems to be an indispensable tool.
Yeah.
Now, do you now we find that every time a Democrat wins or loses, we find that their their share of the vote was erroneous in a big way. So do you then look at the poll, take the information from the poll, and then put your own equation to it?
Yeah.
If it says that, let's say, if it says Lori Lococo is going to win by twice as many votes as Jim Diodati, do you really going to believe that? Or
No.
are you going to figure that's because whoever's the pollster wants Lori to win? Or are the respondents to Lori more the respondents for the Jim type voter would less likely respond to a poll, etc.?
Well, let's take that for a moment. So let us say there was a poll that said that I'm going to be a little bit more conservative, that Lori was going to get 25% more votes than Jim was. Right? Say that was a clear poll a week before the elections. That's fine. So here, Joe Blow kind of says, okay, I'm a lazy Lori supporter. I'm not bothering going out to vote on polling day. It's like it's in the bag. She doesn't need my support. And what happens is she loses because lazy bones won't get out.
Yeah, that was a big problem. Like the biggest examples I can think of late were the ones in the States. But when we were thinking we had our election up here, the polls were not that much off.
No, they weren't.
You remember?
Yeah.
Whether it was provincially, provincially, I don't think we could have argued with Doug winning big time. I think the polls underestimated how much he would win by.
Yeah.
But there's a situation where the voters really didn't come out. And remember, the biggest complaint that we had on the show, or at least comments on the show, was how can you then have confidence in your government when so few people came out to vote?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they did not come out to vote because they felt it was a waste of their time. If they were a Liberal and NDP supporter, why take the time to vote when you know you're going to get creamed?
Rick says it depends on who has the USB thumb drive. That's who wins, right?
Yeah.
I like it, Rick. Thank you.
Well, so basically the reason why I put this up here is polls seem to be, and because we're going to have our own municipal election coming up, but there's going to be a consequential election in the States coming up that will affect us depending on how it turns out here in Canada.
Yeah.
The polls seem to be really messing up. So and yet they are cited all the time. Even Fox News has of late pointed out the bad polls that the MAGA folk are supposed to be facing. That's got them worried. And they got to be worried. There's got to be something that they see there that worries them, because they normally ignore anything that shows discontent among the mega cultists.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, interesting thing is that one of the things that they're talking about in this article, it says majority. So if you took a public opinion poll about polls, the odds are that a majority would offer some form of rather unfavorable views on pollsters and the uses to which their work is put.
That was the interesting part of that. What about the poll on polls?
Yeah, and many potential responders might just simply slam down the phones. And the trouble is here is who is making the poll and how you ask the individual question that really matters. And for example, if you ask the question whether politicians, business leaders, journalists should pay attention to people's voices, most people would say yes, even if 5 minutes ago you slammed down the phone on a pollster.
Yes, and I've talked to people who have tried to solicit votes in the United States. I know a lady that was working for the local Democratic Party,
Yeah.
and it was almost like a poll for her because she get on and she start talking, and people were not interested in letting her know their opinion or where they were, and she could only tell which ones were not going to vote Democrat by the rage by which the people on the other end of the line were yelling, and getting angrier all the time and blaming the Democrats for the pending doom of planet Earth. And of course, I imagine the same thing happens the other way around too when Republicans try to get votes.
Yeah.
But anyway, the polls on the polls, how we find that the polls have been skewed. Why is that? The CNN polls and Fox polls, are they that different? Lately, they haven't been, but are they meant to encourage you? Is there a political action behind the polls? Obviously, we suspect that is. Where do you get unbiased polls, and how do you get even participation? In polls.
Part of the problem with, of course, polls is that you're given 4 choices: A, B, C, D. And what is the most important to you? A, B, C, D. No, the most important thing to me of all of those is if you don't do E, A, B, C, D don't work, right?
Yes, we see here now, particularly the polls of the states, which shows like the disapproval rates of the Republicans, and in particular the MAGA, appear to be very high. But I don't really believe that because I think it's just because those very angry voices that are they're the ones that are voicing their complaints, and the other ones are the sort of a silent majority. And it is the polls are not telling you all the time that in that particular case the Republicans are not looking so good. But if you look a little deeper, the Democrats don't look much better, and it seems to me that it appears that after the midterms, people are going to say, how did the Democrats snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory? If you were to go by the polls. So the polls are still used. They still are a concern for politicians and political parties, but they really have to interpret them. And as you said too, they could have a negative effect on the voters when they look at a poll and say, oh well, such and such going to win anyway, no sense in me coming out. That may have happened to Abdullah al-Sayed of late. He was supposed to win by double digits, and he barely eked out a victory. I mean, it was a surprise that he won in the first place. It was a surprise if he lost by 10%, it would have been a surprise. But he won by a small amount. But he was supposed to win by a huge amount. So how do you square that with the polls? And the only reason why I'm using those ones because I don't have a Canadian one to reference at the moment.
Yeah, but again, part of the problem with the polls is long after it was evident that support for the Conservatives was down, it seemed to me that at the last election, as soon as there was that polling about who was going to be taking over the Liberal Party, for whatever reason, at that point, support for the Conservatives started to wane. Irrespective of who was going to be the new leader, it was the fact that all of a sudden, Pierre Poilievre, although he hadn't done anything different, was all of a sudden not so trusted, and his figures started to nosedive at that point. And I
don't think he was any less trusted, but what his polls were initially put on was he was going to go up against extremely unpopular Justin Trudeau.
Yes.
And do remember that the different conservative parties in Canada, provincial ones, kept telling him that you've got to change your take. You're still campaigning against Justin Trudeau. you have to change it around. You can't be Trump light anymore. You have to be someone who is challenging a much different guy, a guy that's been a banker and a self-made man. You're not challenging a guy that was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. The party is, but he kept campaigning his old campaign, which turned the polls around because the electorate, when they looked at his opinions and that, they did not see him addressing Carney. He saw them addressing the Carney about the government against the Trudeau government, which were vastly different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, so that's one of the, and on odd occasions in history, you've had polls that have said, hey, the victory, victory to one politician is guaranteed, and they lose.
Yeah. So we find that problematic, but we still look at the polls, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
And we still try to interpret them.
Yeah.
But anytime I see these polls where it shows MAGA in tanking overall, I don't believe it. I don't. I think
Rick says Carney is done. I don't believe it.
Right? It's in the polls. It's in the polls.
It depends which poll you look at. But again, that's why you've got things like aggregator polls, both here and in the US. For Canada, it's Canada 388. Right? That's an aggregator poll, which basically takes a look at all of the other polls and adds the figures together.
Yeah, it's funny. Records say that Carney's just pretty much still on his beginning phase. Is still in his and I've heard from the very moment that Carney got in that he was done. He was finished. Yeah, that he's going to really mess up really bad, and everybody's going to give him the boot. We will see. But I remember that, and as I remember too, after I think it was a week or two after Mulroney got elected in, I was in a line in a store, and there was a guy in the line of the store just going on and on about how things were so expensive, and that GD Mulroney had been in office like 2 weeks. He's already blaming him for the expensive things,
Yeah, and that actually is a weird thing, because it's like you very often we often blame politicians for the state of the economy, but very often politicians do little to cause the state of the economy.
Well, that's the personality you can vent against.
I know.
Representation of your woes. I think a better educated electorate is the way to go. Seriously, I think that we can go 4 years without really even paying attention too much, and then suddenly come up to election time and vote emotionally on what's happening rather than have some idea what's going on. I think I hope that as an electorate, we have more of a responsibility. I am often really surprised at foreigners when they come in. I had neighbors that were Croatian. They knew way more about Canadian politics, how it functions, all that. They knew way more. They kept on touch, and I found that with a lot of different immigrants, when people that came, and lived and made their living, they would be very, very astute when it comes to politics. And I would be embarrassed, being a native-born Canadian, not knowing what they knew.
Yeah. Well, because apart from anything else, the route to becoming a Canadian citizen, you have to learn a lot of that stuff.
But they had that in them from the very beginning anyway. Yeah. They had that inquisitive type of nature. They had a vote, and they wanted to know what their politicians were doing, and they could tell you. They could tell you about the economy. They could tell you about this. They could tell you about certain parties' approaches and why one was better than the other, and even those of the party they liked where they were making mistakes. And Rick says that's the Iran people want to be the man in charge, Mike.
He's responding to Mike's comment here, which is the former Crown Prince of Iran has accepted an invitation from the Conservative leader Polyev to visit Canada. Right? He lives in the U.S., by the way. Yeah, that I believe.
Well, you know what? The former Prince of Iran, like, remember the Shah was a brutal dictator. He had a secret police that was pretty rough. Yeah. Do you really want to court that kind of? Do you like the idea of bringing that crown prince and making him leader of Iran again? Do you really want that? Don't you think the people of Iran want to vote for who they want to vote? You don't want to impose somebody from an old regime.
I know 3 or 4 Iranians from my past working life. Met them on 3 or 4 different jobs, and got on very well with them. And they want Iran to turn into a Western style democracy.
Of course. They
live here,
but they're not going to do it with a prince. You know?
Yeah, they live here, right?
Yeah. Well, my neighbor was an Iranian for many years, and so they have a whole lot of problems. Anyway, my best wishes for the Iranian people, and I hope they don't get bombed into oblivion, which may be the next escalation going forward with the Iran thing, because it seems to be irresolvable at the point. There is many rumors that there's going to be much more violent attack on Iran coming up. I
think that would be a dumb move, myself.
Mistake, but you don't know who. You don't with guys like Hegseth pulling the levers. You never know what's going to happen.
I think that would be a dumb move. Anyway,
all you need to do is kill a bunch of people.
Yeah. Right. So, Rick, the main what charge? Oh, they're leaving the party because poor leadership. Rick, how many conservatives are quitting or jumping ship? 5 for money. Yeah, I know where you're coming from, Rick. We know who they are. All right. Okay. And that's got nothing to do with polling, but still. Okay, moving on. Where are we next? Moving on. Okay, cross-border cocaine. How it's detected and why it's such a problem for Canada. Basically, both sides of the border have got problems in terms of illicit cocaine movements from both the US and Canada. But in the first 6 months of the year, 827,000 grams of cocaine with a street value of 82 million was seized by Canadian Border Services Agency at the Ambassador Bridge, Detroit Windsor Tunnel, Blue Water Bridge, Peace Bridge, Queenston Bridge, Rainbow Bridge, and Walpole Island. Which one's Walpole Island? Where's that?
I don't know. But I don't know right offhand. But what has happened here is, as we found out during the early part of Trump's term in office, he punished Canada with tariffs because of our fentanyl that's coming in from the border. We found out that it's a tiny amount, 44 kilos a year or somewhere. I mean, 44 kilos was what they apprehended at the border, which and if you compared that with the Mexican border, apprehension is like 2,000 plus. So that is very, very clear that the vast majority of fentanyl that's making its way into the United States does not come from Canada. It comes from Mexico. As a matter of fact, if you look at it, it's very hard to track. But if you look at the fentanyl that goes from Canada to the United States and from the United States into Canada, that's a minor amount. Those are very, very minor amounts. To have put tariffs on us because of the amount of fentanyl coming from Canada was just a bully tactic. But if you really look at it, we get massive amounts of cocaine. And if you remember, that was always left out of the discussions. Well, how much drugs from the United States come into Canada, and it's enormous. But I will point out, though, that the United States and Canada enforcement agencies work tirelessly hand in hand, and that's getting overlooked here. Both sides of the border are very concerned about apprehending drugs. As a matter of fact, the U.S. apprehends a lot of drugs before they go over. And in the article, it says they're not so much worried about how much comes in from Canada as it's negligible to the amount that goes from the U.S. into Canada. And it's a lot of the drug enforcement officers, agencies in the United States that are stopping it from going into Canada, even though huge amounts do end up going.
Yeah. Okay, just to clarify where Walpole Island is, it's on the Michigan Ontario border. It's there's a ferry there, Walpole Algonac Ferry.
Okay.
It's a ferry crossing.
Okay. So does that mean it's for the two LGBTQ? So anyway,
that was bad. That was bad.
I know it's bad. I know it's bad, but I put it up there for
go and speak 200 Hail Marys.
Yeah. That'll be a trick since I'm not even Catholic. So basically, we have a lot of cocaine. Now, I will resist the attempt. I will resist suggesting that to Mark Carney that he tariffs the United States because of the amount of cocaine that comes from the United States into Canada. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're putting our people at danger. That's how nonsensical that whole thing was on his part with fentanyl. So basically the plus side of the story is that our border agencies, our law enforcement are working hand in hand and doing a very good job. And we can thank the Americans for stopping a lot of that stuff from getting to, they catch it at the border before it goes a lot of times over.
Well, the other thing is that the other important factor here is that U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents in 2024 seized about 927 grams of cocaine. In 2025, that was double. That was more than double the amount.
Yeah,
so
I would say
up.
Yeah. So I think, but the discouraging thing is the amount of people that are using it.
Yeah.
I was pretty surprised, and I don't know why it was, but 3% of the adult population had been doing cocaine in the last all the time. But when they take a poll or try to figure, I don't know how they figured this out, but they because of the amount of cocaine that comes into the country and how much of it's sold, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they reckon 2 to 3% of the population is using it every week, adult population, as recreational drugs. Now, cocaine, of course, is habit forming as well. So you have to look at that.
I knew a gentleman who regularly, every weekend he took marijuana, but he was not a cocaine user. He would basically just said part of his weekend enjoyment is Friday night. He just puffs on the marijuana and keeps it going until much into most of the weekend.
That's a legal drug. It's completely different.
I know. This was back in the illegality days.
Oh yeah. Well, it was. It still was decriminalized.
Yeah.
And the police didn't want to deal with it anymore. the very idea that it was a gateway drug had been sort of, gone.
No, exactly, and so, but again, with something like cocaine, it's a known fact that there are plenty of users out there who've got even fairly professional jobs that basically use at the weekend.
Yeah, it's a recreational drug. As a matter of fact, when they were checking the sewage when they were looking for diseases, of course, public health, which we've talked about here, but it's long since we've talked about it recently, is when public health officials go to the sewers and they check human waste to see what's in it. They're looking usually for diseases and outbreaks of diseases, so they can say, okay, well, we see here in this part of town that we see an outbreak of a certain kind of flu. We can put out health warnings, whatever. But what was surprising to them was the spikes in recreational drugs over the weekends. So when they check the human waste for diseases, they find spikes from Thursday to Monday to Sunday in recreational drug use, and then it flattens out again until the weekend again.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a lot, and probably booze is the same sort of thing, right? There's a lot of people who.
Well, they would have expected that. The whole idea is they knew how much booze they would see.
Yeah.
They are familiar with that. What they got surprised was the amount of recreational drugs, which made it very clear that there was an ample supply out there.
There is also a prevailing one of these public opinion survey type things. There's a prevailing view out there that, in fact, drugs, drugs are better than alcohol.
I don't know who thinks that, but I don't know. Maybe they did a poll.
Maybe. Maybe it was a poll of polls.
Yes. So so I think that when I read the article, I thought, it was preposterous for the U.S. government to use fentanyl against us because of the low amount. So they had to exaggerate that. Those kind of tariffs are no longer legal. The Supreme Court have turned them down. That's why the U.S. administration is finding different ways of finding different means by which to put tariffs on things. I don't think, and a lot of times it's not logical, So because if it was, then because so much of our cocaine comes from the United States, probably almost all of it comes via the United States, then would we put a tariff on the United States for not protecting us well enough and not doing their due diligence? That's how dumb it was, because we find that the Canadian and the American drug enforcement and the officers on both sides are working hand in hand. And we found that even though we get massive amounts of cocaine from the United States, we can see huge amounts being stopped at the border before it even gets across.
Well, yeah.
They're doing their job. It's just that the demand for the drug is the thing.
Well, in fact, actually, you can't necessarily, just because the numbers have gone up significantly, doesn't mean that the amount of drugs that are going across the border has gone up. It just means that their detection is they've become better at detecting.
No, not well. That maybe to a point, but when they find that many drugs being interrupted and arrests being made, that indicates that there's volumes changing. For every one they catch, 10 get across or something like that, whatever. That's the situation. So when they see fentanyl coming from, let's say, Canada, and they had, I think it was 44 kilos or something, about 100 pounds, whatever it was, that was a very small amount, but a small amount of fentanyl can do a whole lot of damage.
Yeah.
So when they look at that and they see apprehension rates, they know that when apprehension rates go up, that means volume coming into the country is going up. And the same thing for all different drugs. So that's
normally I would expect
the indicators they use.
Yeah, I'd expect that was true. That the actual, if the, I can't see that typically any workers, yes, you could get lucky. You can get lucky. You can detect more this year than you did last year. But that's that, you're right. Statistically, it's likely 1 in 10 people who cross get detected.
Anyway, hats off to the American authorities that stopped that cocaine from getting here in the first place, and hats off to our own people for doing it. We need a little bit more political resolve in this. I think we need more resources for stopping it. The demand is the biggest thing, though. If you have demand, they're going to find a way of getting it here. Any amount of drug enforcement personnel will tell you that that's it. If you have demand, you're going to find a means in which to satisfy that demand.
Yeah. Okay, so let's very quickly deal with this one. Lithium ion fires is on the rise. Basically, the fire chief in Toronto is saying this is becoming quite dangerous, particularly apartment fires where people are using the scooters to recharge their batteries, the lithium ion batteries.
Yeah, so fires resulting from recharging lithium-ion batteries are becoming a major threat out there. And the news reports that I sent you, and I could only find a video at the time, shows that in and around Hogtown there, the GTA, they've had these problems with bikes. What has happened is the electric e-bike has become very, very popular. So people take it into their apartments or their condos and charge it there. The problem is some of the charging there are great flaws with the lithium-ion batteries, and they explode into fire. The fire departments even talked about when they're on their ladders, they're going up to an apartment to try to help them. Lithium-ion battery will blow up on another balcony. And so what is that situation going? There is a lot of electric bikes out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of the electric bikes are used for delivery service. They found 12 electric bikes in one apartment. So obviously there are these electric bikes are used in delivery services, so they become more and more popular. And that puts a lot of risk because of where they're charging them.
Yeah.
So the fire department says we need better regulations on those batteries. And in the meantime, be very, very careful, because you could be sleeping one night and your lithium-ion battery is going to blow up and then start a fire.
Yeah.
What is it with lithium-ion batteries that is happening? I didn't know that they were at risk to do that.
No, neither did I. And in fact, typically you don't hear of. And again, hey, I'm not saying this because I disbelieve any of this lot, but you don't lithium-ion batteries have been used for cell phones and laptops and things like that, and you don't generally hear of a lot of fires with cell phones and laptops, do you?
Yeah. So, you don't do that. But the big problem, of course, is these bikes, and they point that out. What there needs to be is some better regulatory process where the battery is safer. Now, are these batteries, they don't go into it, are they being abused? Is the charging system being abused? Is the bikes old? You get the idea that a lot of these bikes are being used delivery. So I would imagine there's a lot of people out there, and because they come from apartments and stuff like that, they're probably the means by which people make money is their e-bike as they deliver stuff. And if you've got like a different case at times, you've got up to 12 bikes in one apartment. That means there's 12 people living in there that deliver with their bikes.
Well, not necessarily, Dave, because in fact, actually, the challenge with some of these e-bikes is how far you can go. So if you keep an eye on the charge, if you're doing, let's say, if you're working a 12-hour day doing one of these delivery jobs, and you get to a point whereby your charge is now below about below 25%, get the fuck home, get on a new bike, and get out there, continue your job on, right?
It could do. Usually they, as far as I know, they hold a pretty long charge. So when I was in India, actually in Jaipur, one of the auto rickshaw drivers had electric auto rickshaw, which I was amazed by. You know, normally they have the little motorcycle engine in them. So we asked him, like, how do you do it? He says, I can work for 8 hours on my one charge overnight. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's the future, but the thing is, the warning is out there. First of all, be careful how you charge. Keep an eye on it. I don't know what is causing them to blow, but there has to be better regulations. Yeah. Probably even regulations of bringing them into an apartment, basically. Why would you bring them in? Well, you bring them in the apartment because they're safer that way. But shouldn't there be some sort of means by which to park them in another place?
Do you know how many times we get complaints, tenants coming along, not that we can do much about the majority of these, where bikes, bicycles, e-bikes and the like are stolen even right outside the apartment door?
Yeah.
Well, and we're being told this all the time by tenants. And the sad thing is, of course, is it's one of these sort of things. You can't exactly put a complaint against the landlord, because it's not the landlord's fault, and even the tenants will admit that. It's some idiot out there stealing this stuff.
Well, I want to point this out right now. If you've got an e-bike and you come out your door and the e-bike is gone, and there's a fat bastard driving an e-bike down the road, it's not me.
Was that PHAT?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, PHAT. Anyway, so we come to an end of conclusion. I'm going to talk about Gaza again. I always do, because I don't want that to be knocked off out of people's minds. It's a horrible situation that the West has really got to deal with in their minds. They sat back and they watched a population that's over 50% kids. I think if you want, it's almost 2/3 18 or under in that population, and 72,000 of that population got killed. And they weren't not exactly using smart bombs, but big dumb bombs that they got from dumbass Biden. And they and people are getting one meal a day now. Medical still is a problem, and Netanyahu has snubbed Trump. Like I gotta say, Trump wanted a peace deal, and he had one going, and Netanyahu's just thumbs his nose at him. Mm-hmm. Actually, he's got to rein in that guy. But I'm looking for justice for the average Palestinian out there. The average kid, get him back to school, get him fed, get that little boy or girl a bed to sleep in instead of the ground, anything. Right now they're living in tents or rubble because almost every building got destroyed or damaged. It's unlivable. They don't have continuous supplies of water and everything, despite the UN, despite those people within the United States that feel that this whole thing has been a genocide. Anyway, we really do have to address a situation like that. We cannot allow a so-called democracy to go crazy like that again. Yeah. I mean, when the terrorists hit the towers in the United States, yeah, of course they went and they fought. They went to Afghanistan to look for the perpetrators, but they made the mistake of overlapping into Iraq and killing hundreds of thousands of civilians looking for weapons of mass destruction. We got to get the ignorance and stupidity out of our governing people who don't know what they're talking about. Like, really, I think that's a large part of it. I think when Tucker Carlson interviewed Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz was all for bombing and getting rid of Iran, he couldn't tell Tucker Carlson anything about Iran. He couldn't tell him about the religion they had. They couldn't tell him about the ethnic background of he couldn't talk about the population. He couldn't talk about anything. But he sure well knew that the place had to be destroyed or bombed or put in the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So ignorance is the main driver, and that's a dangerous thing. Without further ado, I bid you adieu.
All right. Have a good